Well, I want to thank you all very much. This is great. These are our friends. We have thousands of friends.
All right, let's get you to sit down there.
This is good?
Can you tell me what happened?
What a lot of people thought was going to happen was that conservatism and racism and sexism were basically going to die with the boomers, and were going to die as the country became more ethnically diverse. What we're learning is that that's not happening.
Donald Trump this week put on a political masterclass in how to harness the vote of disaffected young men.
He won by over 5 million votes. It's the first time in 20 years that the Republicans have won the popular vote, and Republicans now control all three branches of government. Any leverage that the Democrats or the left had over the country, over our institutions, any mechanism they had to affect policy or to stand up to what's going to happen is now gone.
We have about 2 more months of a Democratic presidency, and there's not really much we can do before Trump takes office. Do you think we can trust polls anymore?
It's very hard to say.
Historically, at least over the past 30 years or so in American presidential elections, has been quite good. But in 2016 and in 2020, the polls underestimated the support for Donald Trump.
The polls were fluctuating throughout the election, but it seemed as if Harris was going to win because she had a lead, a small lead, but a lead in every swing state going into Election Day.
Trump was up in the polls while Biden was still the candidate, and he was up by a wide margin. People did not like Biden.
The Siena College poll shows that the U.S. president is lagging behind his predecessor and Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump.
And then we saw pretty much up until 2 weeks ago, Kamala was up in the polls. And then for the last 2 weeks, they were neck and neck in the polls, Trump being up by less than a percentage point. And that was not the case for the results of the election.
The fact that she lost all swing states on Election Day, she lost Nevada, which a lot of people didn't think she was going to lose, that the Democrats got clocked in the Senate, and it's the third election in a row that the polls have been off by 3, 4, 5 points. Take them for what they're worth, but polls, if they're anything, what they're not is a prediction of who's going to win the election. We know that now.
And up until this point, we all thought that the Electoral College was favoring Republicans and that it was an unfair system. But we can't say that anymore. More people voted for Trump, and he got more electoral points.
Donald Trump, in what was a historic and extraordinary victory, also won the popular vote, which is just a kind of extra level of affirmation for him and for his policies and his party.
Why do you think young white men are voting Republican more than ever before?
I think that this is a really interesting phenomena to look at. We've been seeing massive gains in societal improvement and societal progress as it pertains to minority communities. And I think an unfortunate thing that has happened in tandem with trying to help or improve the lives of people who aren't males, people who aren't white, we've seen a societal movement that has told white men specifically that they suck, that they are oppressive, they're all colonialists, and that we don't want you at all. I am a liberal. I am a Democrat. I understand that this feeling, even within my own camp, is true at times, but I would never let that decide how I would want to vote. But the reality is, and you can't hold it against them, a lot of people feel like they're being targeted just because they're white or just because they're men, and they didn't like that, so they voted the other way.
The fact that young men are becoming more conservative proves that conservatism is not relegated to age. The fact that young Latino men and Latino people in general are voting for Trump proves that a ethnically diverse country can still elect a fascist. What it says is that there are deeper ideas at play that mere identity shifts can't solve. Do you think that there was any way that Kamala could have won?
I mean, if you asked me, like, literally the day of, I think that she had a better chance at winning than Trump.
It's something I've been thinking about a lot. I thought she was going to win. So I think that she did everything correctly. I think she picked the right vice presidential candidate. I thought her message was on point throughout the campaign. I'm happy that the policies she was fronting about removing a tax on tips, about, the child tax credit. It was really like economic, like boilerplate issues that people cared about. She wasn't fronting super far left stuff throughout the election.
After seeing the results, I don't think Kamala could have won. I don't think any Democrat could have won, to be clear. The right's messaging has been so powerful and the left's has been so weak that it now seemed inevitable that he was going to win. It's clear that policy doesn't matter for a lot of people. It's clear that traditional American values don't matter for a lot of people. Trump and who he is as a person, and his style of person, his personality, was the most important thing in this election for voters.
If she lost, running a campaign that wasn't perfect but was basically what I would have suggested she'd do if I was her campaign manager, if that's not sufficient to beat Trump, I don't know what she could have done. Do you think that Trump's messaging, particularly using alternative media and podcasts and things like that, was effective to reaching out to any group of voters, maybe those white men or maybe other voters?
Yeah, I mean, that strategy was particularly effective for young white men. Young white men consume the internet, specifically podcasts and streams, at a greater rate than any other demographic. And he went on all of the podcasts that were the most popular for men. He went on Joe Rogan, he went on Impulsive with Logan Paul, he went on Theo Vaughn. He did the rounds of the young white male podcasts, and that proved to be successful.
I think when people are voting for Trump, what they're doing is they're going to a voting booth and they're writing their name down for Trump. But I think there's a sense of identity associated with it that is really what the messaging of the two campaigns is trying to accomplish.
You have a mass amount of people that are hearing Republican MAGA-centered ideas going relatively unchallenged.
I think he was able to sell a message of strength. You ask a Trump supporter, why do you think Trump's better? Why is he tougher on other countries in negotiations or whatever? They don't cite, experience of things that he's done as president. They talk about, oh, he's a tough guy. The world thinks he's a tough guy. He's able to sell a message of masculinity and toughness and strength that convinces a lot of people to vote for him. When talking to Harris supporters, what they emphasized was her message of caring about other people and optimism and hope and empathy. And of course, all this, these are politicians at the end of the day. They're trying to get elected. But I think what it showed is that more Americans like the message of, I'm fucking tough and I'm going to kick your ass. And that message was more powerful than a communitarian, empathetic message. What do you think the role of feelings was in this election?
Well, I think that feelings are what drives political allegiance. People felt like Trump was going to be better on a variety of issues than Kamala. They felt that, and I want to say felt because it's not true.
I think people, they vote based off of feelings, and I think the difference now in campaigns like we saw in 2024 is that the messaging is almost exclusively about feelings, not just from the campaign, but all the way down to every level of media that covers the election. So when people are confronted with fact checks and things like that, the feeling overcomes that in every example for Trump supporters,
So it seems that feelings about things are more important than the facts of the matter. People feel a certain way and then they vote based on how they feel. That's very clear. Trump was indicted 4 times. He was impeached twice. He was held civilly liable in court. He's a felon. All of these things are facts, and that did not dissuade anyone from voting for him, it seems.
There's never going to be a contrary fact to the idea that Trump is the best fucking person ever, because they don't feel that way. Because to sacrifice that feeling would be to sacrifice the identity that I was talking about earlier.
Well, I think if you look at the accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration, and quite honestly, I've been mystified why the president and the vice president haven't focused on this more. Many of the things that they accomplished were things that President Trump talked about and did nothing about.
People feel as though Trump is this strong man that's going to save the country. There's no proof of that. He was a bad president insofar as he literally didn't do that much stuff when he was president.
You've seen an entire decade of facts, basically, journalism, fact-checking and debates, just all sorts of media that attempts to assess the truth of Trump's claims. And what we learned is that conservatives care less about facts and what is actually true than defending their guy.
He didn't build your wall. You wanted him to. You won't hold him accountable for that. He didn't improve the economy. He didn't significantly make it worse, but he did a bunch of tax cuts that economists say was worse for the country if he might have done something else.
Is that true of the left as well? Probably, but the fact remains that the left is just more right about stuff. So even if they feel that way, they do have the evidence behind them anyways.
There are no facts that mattered to a conservative or Republican in this election, because either the facts aren't true, or the facts are made up, or they're a part of a grander deep state conspiratorial idea.
It is especially interesting that the conservatives who coined that whole dichotomy of we care about facts over feelings are the ones that have fully sacrificed that. And I think it's because of the identity and the feeling stuff that we're talking about earlier. This is the third time that Trump has run for president, and the first time that he's actually managed to win the popular vote. In what ways do you feel like he has laid groundwork for this victory since 2016 in relation to the media or the establishment, or other ways he's convinced people to vote for him?
Yeah, I think misinformation and disinformation played the strongest role in this election than ever before. It's probably going to play an equally strong role in the next election. And Trump, since before 2016, was able to lay the groundwork that the information he provided was the truth, that in fact the establishment, the traditional media, they were the ones that were pushing lies.
He created a culture, and every politician does the first thing, which is create a culture around you of people who like you and appreciate you and want you to win. That's fine. That's just being a politician. And it's fine if people write negative things about you to disagree with them on that. But what he created that has spread across the conservative media sphere is that when a criticism or a contrary fact comes out that comes into conflict with something Trump is saying or something the right is saying, it is not identified as we disagree with this. It's identified as this is part of a large conspiracy to try to get Trump.
You know, you heard before 2016, before he won the election, he was already getting ready to say if he lost, he said that this election's rigged. He won it, and then he took back all those claims. He's always preemptively saying that, like, the deep state or the election or whatever it might be, the Department of Justice is against him or something's rigged. And then if he wins, it's no longer rigged, of course, because they weren't able to succeed in their rigging or that the people were too powerful and they overcame it.
Everything that is contrary to the narrative of the deep state is against Trump and therefore against us is just consumed back into the narrative of the deep state.
Everything he has said has just contributed to an anti-establishment feeling, to an antitrust in traditional media feeling, and he's been very good at it.
He's delegitimized every single institution in the country so that when they do anything, when any bad thing happens, it's the fault of a grand conspiracy.
It's made it very difficult to fight against that.
So we've been talking a lot about why Kamala lost, why Trump was able to win. What happens next?
Trump gets inaugurated. The Republicans They're going to have 53 or 54 Senate seats. The House is gone. The Supreme Court is 6-3. And Trump is going to replace people like Clarence Thomas and the older justices with the younger justices.
Yeah. So the Democrats they don't have the Senate, they don't have the House, they don't have the presidency, and they don't have the Supreme Court. There's not really any way that I can think of that Democrats can stop Trump from doing what he wants to do.
I saw Matt Walsh tweet something about how now that the election's over, we can admit that Project 2025 is the agenda. So I think you're going to see a lot of those ideas roll out.
He's going to go into office. He's going to pardon himself from his past crimes. And essentially he's free to do a lot more now than what he was able to do 8 years ago.
It's just going to be a time of one side of the political aisle being able to do whatever they want, which is abortion bans and mass deportation and deregulation and wrecking the climate. And there's basically nothing, there's no check on that for 2 years.
And I think that this is a more dangerous Trump. Trump now has a term under his belt. He understands a little bit more about how the government works. Granted, he doesn't understand it anywhere as close to anyone in his position before. But the things that matter, he does know. He knows that he shouldn't have people that are going to disagree with him in his cabinet. He's not going to make that mistake again. He's going to make sure it's entirely consistent of MAGA. He knows that the Supreme Court's on his side. He's probably going to tell older Supreme Court justices to retire so that he can get 30, 40-year-old justices in their positions so that they can stay in the Supreme Court for 40 to 50 years. But more broadly, it's his cabinet, and it's Project 2025, and it's MAGA that is going to be really dangerous. I don't think it's just Trump. Trump isn't a good enough president to affect horrible change. It's the smart people around him that are allegiant to him that are ultimately going to be the most damaging.
Is mass deportation a good or a bad thing for the country?
It's obviously a bad thing for many reasons. First off, if they actually go far enough to start deporting citizens, that's just a violation of people's citizenship rights. Regardless of that, they're comfortable, and they've pushed for before, splitting up families, which is going to separate people from their children.
His new immigration policy is mass deportation. I think that's super dangerous. I think that we should have strong immigration policy. But the thing that has plagued America as it pertains to immigration is not illegal immigrants flooding the border. It's an asylum-seeking issue. And there was a border bill that was proposed by Republican senators, and Trump told them to shut it down. He told them, I'm running on an immigration solution, and if you solve it before I can get the chance to run, then I won't have much to run on.
Then you also have economic implications, which would be putting millions of workers that are currently participating in vital industries like agriculture and construction and a lot of other really important infrastructure elements of our economy, removing them from the country, which is going to create a massive void of labor. And we're probably going to go into a recession if something like the deportation of 5 million workers happened.
They've talked about removing birthright citizenship. So that means that an illegal immigrant who has a child in America, that child is an American. They might want to remove that, which means a lot of American citizens right now could also theoretically be deported.
And then there's also cultural implications to that. This is his whole thing, is everything is America first. We're too intertwined with other populations and other nations to withdraw from that. And even to do that, you'd have to try to figure out who's American and who's not. And the truth is, a lot of people he wants to get rid of are American in every way that counts.
What kind of economic policy do you think that we're going to see?
It's not instantaneous. So it's like if a bill gets passed today, you might not see the effects of that bill for 2, 3, 4 years even. And I think that there's a bit of confusion around how the economy works, which is that you see in 2016 to 2019 a good economy, and people think Trump did that. There's not one bill or policy that Trump did that made the economy better. He inherited a good economy from Obama, and that same thing is going to be true for his next presidency. Biden has done an amazingly good job at recovering the economy and fixing the world that we were in post-COVID.
Yeah. So when Trump got into office in 2016, it was 8 years after the 2008 housing crisis and recession. And in the 8 years following that, which was the Obama era, Obama and Biden really rebuilt the economy. They cut the deficit in half. Unemployment went from like 9% to like 4% or something like that. And then Trump came in and he passed one tax cut bill and he kind of rode the wave of the Obama economy. And then COVID hit and Biden came in with a mess and he did a stimulus package, much like Obama did in 2008.
But a lot of the effects of really good policy that's been implemented by the Biden presidency to continue to be felt in Trump's term, and he's going to take all the credit for it, and everyone's going to think Republicans are better on the economy than Democrats, and the cycle's just going to continue. But as it pertains to economic policy that he wants to implement, his high tariff implementation is really not good for the economy. Economists don't think it's good. Average people who know what a tariff is don't think it's good. It's just going to raise prices on consumers. It's a tax on imported goods. Companies that import those goods, they don't want to take the brunt of the tax, so they increase their prices on those goods. All that means is that the consumer is going to be spending more money on products that otherwise would have been cheaper without that tariff.
If he starts to do things like massive tax cuts and deregulation, which he will, it's largely going to fuck over low-income workers and lead to some of the more macroeconomic things we were talking about, where you cut taxes and are unable to raise enough revenue to pay for your budget, deficit goes up, inflation goes up, and so on.
Trump's first term, he insulted and alienated many of the United States' long-standing allies. His return to the White House has huge consequences for everything from global trade to climate change to conflicts around the world.
We see an international reaction to Trump. What do you think it represents about America and the American image across the world that we re-elected Trump?
European countries, they were polled. I think it was nearly every European country would have preferred Kamala to be the president. But ultimately, I think that the rest of the world isn't so brain broken into thinking that Trump is like the patriotic American president. You know, like being a true American isn't someone who watches football and drinks beer and has an American flag. You know, like they stand for the rule of law. They stand on the Constitution. They love the Constitution. They love thy neighbor. They might have Christian values. All of these things are way more American than Trump going to UFC or Trump going to NASCAR or Trump be going to a football game. None of that is American. That's just things that Americans do. Those aren't American values. And it seems that European countries care more about American values than Americans do. They've been brain broken into thinking that trucks, bald eagles, and American flags are what make a great American, and that's just not true.
What do you think 4 more years of Trump looks like as it pertains to the social divide?
I think that Trump being elected is a confirmation that the social polarization is alive and well, and it's getting worse. I mean, this is the first time he's actually won the popular vote. So all the arguments people have been saying for a decade about, yeah, there's people who support him, but you know that's the minority. There's a silent majority of people who believe in community and empathy and are not racist and all those things. You can't make those arguments anymore because he got more votes. I mean, anytime someone wins and half the country thinks it's that they've been freed from demons, as Andrew Tate would put it, and half the country correctly identifies that we're really on the brink of fascist takeover and the end of democracy here. That's not good. So I think there's probably going to be more violence in the streets going on. There's going to be stochastic terrorism, and there's going to be hate crimes increasing, and that's the core stuff. But then you're going to see a metastasization of everything you've been seeing over the last 10 years in terms of just how hard it is to communicate and how we're all living in two different realities. What kind of role do you think masculinity played in this election?
It played a massive role, you know, as this kind of pertains to what I was talking about earlier on, that the right is very accepting of traditional masculinity. And I think that is a messaging issue that Democrats forgot about. Most of the country is white. most of the country still seems to be traditional, a lot more than as far as being like fully progressive. So the one error that Democrats made was not to acknowledge that the American demographics. The right seemed to do it pretty well, but they effectively were able to become the party of the majority demographic. They were able to convince the majority demographic that we are for you. And it's very clear that America is not as progressive as we thought. Masculinity is still super important to a lot of people. Gender expression as it is still very important to these people. You need to be a masculine man, and people think that the left, for some reason, is taking that away from them.
What does the Democratic Party need to do moving forward?
Win elections is the main thing. And that is going to look different at different levels of government. State government and local government is, I feel like I say this after every election, but is still the main vehicle you have to pursue policy that you want.
Yeah, I think to move forward, pretty drastic steps need to be taken. The Democratic Party, maybe they need to excise the far left, but at minimum, they need to differentiate themselves to a massive degree from the far left.
It's easier to win a representative seat than it is a presidency. It's easier to win a state representative seat than it is a U.S. representative seat.
This really sounds pretty counter progress, but they have to say, we care about white people, we care about white men. Because while historically it is very true that people like me have had a significant amount of privilege and power, people that are my age right now aren't those people. They don't feel that way.
So try to get power from the bottom up. That's the Band-Aid solution. And then long term, the Democratic Party needs to realize that the approach it's taking to try to win over voters is not working. Because I think they don't have an identity that looks good to people, that people want to be part of. I don't think that their message is appealing to 50% of Americans.
And all of these academic conversations that surround racism, structural racism, colonialism, you got to keep that within the institution. That's not how average people think. If you tell the average person that you're racist, or the average white person that you're racist, while structurally there's an interesting, nuanced conversation you can have in relation to that, the average person just hears, I didn't use the N-word just now. Why are you calling me racist?
And so they need to actually rebrand on stuff that might not even be fair to rebrand on. It might suck. It might be bullshit that we have to take a step back on racial progress and transgender progress and stuff like that.
You can't call all of these people racist and be associated with the left and then assume they're just going to vote for you. You just called them something that most people do not want to be. They don't want to go help someone out that just made them feel really horrible. That doesn't make any sense. So the Democrats need to separate themselves from the far left, and they need to say, like what the right has been saying for a while, that we are also for young white men.
Stuff that I might favor. Unfortunately, I feel like the culture around it makes it impossible to win elections when you're branded with that. So the Democratic Party needs a rebrand. And they've done it before. They did it with Clinton in 92. They did it with Obama in 08.
Kamala, in her concession speech, and in many speeches up until the election, was saying, I'm the party for everyone. Clearly, that's not good enough. You have to explicitly say, I am for white people as well. And that sounds really crazy, and that sounds like white supremacist almost. But we have to stop pretending that you don't need the white vote to win, because it's very clear that we do.
There needs to be a new type of Democrat. I don't know exactly what that will look like, but I do think that it's going to have a lot less to do with a specific policy set and more with the type of identity that movement is promising to Americans.
We had Democrats won the black vote, they won the Latino vote, they won the Asian vote, they won the female vote. They didn't win the white vote, and they didn't win the white male vote. And we can continue to pretend like we don't need those votes, but we just lost the popular vote. We just lost the Electoral College. We lost the presidency. We lost the Senate. We lost the House. We lost literally every form of power that we can have. clearly something has to change. And I think that those steps, while they might feel unsettling and they don't seem progressive, are steps that we need to take so we can win back the presidency, and so we can get power, so we can pass good policy, so we can pass policy that helps minorities, that helps women. Not being in office is the worst thing for us. We need to get back in office, and that might mean conceding a few things that previously we didn't want to concede.
Do you have any final thoughts just about this whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to have an open mind. Like, I hope that it's not as bad as I think it's going to be. And I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I'm not an immigrant, that I'm not a woman, that there are certain policies that he's going to pursue that are not going to directly affect me. But a lot of people should be scared, you know? A lot of people should be scared. And I don't know exactly what the right approach is for how to fight back, but now that every level of government is gone, it's probably going to have to be something involving protests and social work and things outside of government. I think that's the only thing we can do for 2 years, and then we just have to win the midterms.
Is there anything else you want to talk about in relation to Trump or the election or what comes after?
I think that the next 4 years are going to be tough for a variety of reasons that we've already outlined. But ultimately, I think what everyone needs to do is start talking to people that are different than you. Social media has allowed us to hyper select for the group of people that are just like you, and that has led to people on the left and on the right thinking that the opposite side is evil and wants to destroy the country. Make a conservative friend if you're on the left. Make a liberal friend if you're on the right. You have to start talking to people, because if you don't, then it leads to things like this. Trump is not the Republican candidate. He is his own candidate. Kamala was the candidate for the entirety of America. But that's not what happened, because no one talks to each other. People think that Republicans are all insane. They want to remove abortion rights for all women, that they're all racist, that they're all sexist. That's not true. Talk to these people in real life. They are not like this. And any of them that are like this, have some pride in yourself. Think that you have the ability to convince people of the things that you believe to be good. Go talk to these people on campus. Go talk to people in real life. You have to start talking to people, acknowledging that we're a lot more similar than we are different. And ultimately, if you ever want to win in the future, half the country thinking that you're insane is a problem. So we very clearly have to change this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.